So in the last tutorial we saw how to draw a 2x4x5 stanchion. In this one we're going to draw a 2x4x2, which is the shorter version. So let me hide this one here. And we're going to turn on a plate because we're going to use the dimensions from a plate. And so it makes sense to just create a sketch on that plate to work from instead of drawing a whole new part. Hide any sketches you might have turned on from previous that you no longer need. And hide any planes you feel you don't need either. So, I'm going to create the next smaller stanchion on top of a plate, since it bases a lot of measurements off that plate. New sketch on the top of my plate. View to the top. And then I'm going to use project the outer edges of my circles to build the first part of my stanchion. I know that my stanchion has feet that connect these three, that go between these three circles. So I'm going to first start by drawing those feet and drawing a rectangle through them. So I know my rectangle, for example, kind of crosses through some of the feet on both sides. I can center it about the feet by adding a point to the edge of the plate and then tying that point horizontal to another point at the edge of the end of my stanchion, or the rectangle I created. Horizontal, click the the center points, and it lines them up. Now I know the distance from the approximate distance from the back of the stanchion to the outer edge of a peg. Is going to be half a peg height. So peg height divided by 2. And the distance across your stanchion is about a brick unit minus half a peg height. So 1 brick unit minus variable peg, or whoops, not plate height, peg height divided by 2. And that way the edges of my rectangle don't come quite to the center line of my peg circles. And then the front of my stanchion has a slope to it. So I'm just going to draw 2 diagonal lines connecting at the center point, but not connecting to the plate underneath. Then from the edge of where the diagonal line starts to the edge of my circle, we want to make sure to adjust that a little bit. I want to zoom in and make sure I'm going vertical. And so right now it's giving me a tangent distance, which really for this purpose is fine. We really don't care. Again, that's going to be peg height divided by 2. then the distance from the edge of my angled line to the front of the angled line, if you drag straight up, should be a peg diameter minus that 0.8. So let's actually do that as one control unit instead. So let me step back a step and do it again this way. Diameter, front edge of the slanted angle to the edge of my circle. That is going to be 1 peg diameter. Then from the end of the angled surface to the start of my peg, dimension, oops, would be a plate height plus half a peg height. Plate height plus peg height divided by 2. And if it won't let you do that, sometimes it won't let you do a plus after a divided by 2 after a plus. So we can actually say peg height times 0.5, or we do the operation in the other direction. .5 times variable peg height plus peg diameter. Oops. I had it backwards. I want to say minus peg diameter, right? Alright, it didn't let me do it that way, but you get the idea. Sometimes you might need to hit delete. Let's delete the dimension and do it again. Really, you want it 3.2 plus 0.8. So again, let me try that one more time. So a peg height So we have plate height plus 0.5 times peg height, which gives us 3.2 plus 0.8, which equals 4. Now just tie the points together vertically. And while this doesn't look perfect representation, it's close enough for our purposes. So we're going to start by extruding this up, just that rectangular part. And then your goal, before you extrude, let me actually turn that feature off. Double check by turning off part 1 underneath to make sure you have what you want. Alright, I forgot to project something, I see. I forgot to project the edges of my circular pegs onto my sketch. So I need to do that again. Open my sketch. Use project, and let me grab the edge of my pegs and project them onto my circle. Make sure don't project your text if you happen to have any text in your part. Now if I turn off my plate, I can see the plate circles left over, and that's what I want. So now I can say extrude. Uncheck the inside portions of the circles. Oh, missed a piece on the corners here. And that height is only going to be half a plate height. I mean half a peg height. Now I can click OK. There we see the bottom portion. If I turn plate 1 back on, I can kind of see where it fits in between there. Now from the bottom of this piece, I'm going to create an offset plane using my plane feature. So plane, click the bottom of our stanchion feet, zoom out a little bit. I want my plane to go up 2 brick heights. Click OK, and now I'm going to put a sketch on here. New sketch. Spin around so I can see it. And now I'm going to turn back on my plate piece I was drawing on top of. And if you want, you can turn off the other planes you no longer need, since we don't need to see them. So we just say hide. Now if I say use project, I want to project the last 2 circles of my stanchion foot I projected the back 2 circles where my feet are attached to, and I'll go ahead and project the next 2 circles forward. But on a stanchion, these 4 circles are actually half a brick unit offset towards the back of the stanchion. And so after I've projected them, I'm going to turn the part off so I don't see it anymore. And then I'm going to use the transform feature, which is probably under the linear pattern button. So transform, click my 4 circles, click the drag arrow to drag them a certain distance, and I'm going to go half a brick unit so I can punch in my variable. Which it doesn't seem to allow you to punch in a variable here. So it's going to be 4 millimeters. Hit enter once to select and left click to confirm. And you can see it moved them. Now I'm going to go ahead and dimension them. Because as it moved them, it disassociated their constraints. So I'll dimension them and tie them together horizontally and vertically. And dimension their diameter. Alright, now that I have my circles, I want to draw a rectangle around the outside, or a square around the outside of those. And dimension from the edge of my square to the edge of the circle on each side 1 peg height. If the circle moves instead of the rectangle plate, well then you can go back and confirm or change the distance or a dimension you're missing on the previous circles. And then I know each side is a brick unit, 2 brick units long. And set those equal. Alright. We can see it's not quite fully constrained because it's still blue. And the way to fix that is, if I click and drag one edge, I can see all my circles are dimensioned correctly, but not tied to the piece below. So we can do that by adding a point at the center line of our rectangle. At the edge, and I can tie that point horizontal to the point below. So now it is symmetrical top and bottom. And then if I use project the circle below that piece, I get the center point, and I can tie those together vertically at that point. Center point of circle to center point of square, and now it's fully constrained. Now I want to extrude the rectangle part and the circles down. Make sure I'm going down. Depth is going to be peg height divided by 2. So say OK, and now I know that from the top of this surface to the bottom of this surface should be 2 brick units, or 2 brick heights. Now let me turn that sketch on again so I can see where my peg circles are and extrude those up. Opposite direction, add, and regular peg height, confirm. Now I'm going to use the midplane feature again to be able to draw the support in between. So to do that, we're going to click plane and click the top side of the flat side of one part of the top plate and the flat side of the other part of the top plate. Change your point to midplane. And by clicking on 2 parts using the midplane feature, it creates a plane in the middle of them. Say OK. Now I'll put a sketch on that. Turn off my other sketches I don't need. And then I just draw my connecting lines. I know that on the front foot of my stanchion connects to the bottom edge of my plate, but I can't grab that yet because I haven't clicked Use Project. So always do use project first. Let's do the front top edge of my stanchion here. And the underneath part of the stanchion. And I need to do the top of the pegs so I can grab those points for horizontal alignment. So now I can click line from the front of my stanchion to the underside of my stanchion, and from the same on the back. Then I'm going to do a vertical alignment on where the edge of the slant stops to the alignment of the peg above. There, that turned it confirmed. So now all I need to do is extrude that surface. I want it to be symmetric. I want it to be peg height divided by 2. It's not very thick. Tab to confirm. And then I want to say add and merge with all. By saying merge with all, it's going to go ahead and merge the two pieces together that the middle part that's extrusion is touching. So now it becomes all one piece. And there's the second part of the stanchion. The only error is this little overlap here. And if you'd like to fix that, you could do that with what's called a chamfer. Click both edges. And our equal distance will be half the distance across the gap here. And this is 0.8 millimeters, so it will be 0.4 millimeters. Tab to say OK. And confirm. There we go. That doesn't look too bad. Now I can import that into my other part. Thanks for watching.